Hello again. Welcome back to Asgard and welcome back to Alphacraft. So, today we are going to be tackling a bit of building, or we're going to start doing a bit of building down in the cave section. Mainly just adding pathways and starting to bring some of the stuff together that's going to be taking up the section of cave that we've already dug out. I don't suspect that we'll finish it. I mean, that's a massive area and it's going to take a massive amount of resources and a massive amount of planning on my side, because it's kind of like where we're building is kind of like a hub section. I expect this video to probably take a while to finish because we have to decide kind of where start working on figuring out which direction we're going to take certain pathways, because if you recall, I want some of the pathways to feel old rickety wooden kind of goblin made, and I want some of them to be old ruins, and I want, you know, this variation kind of starting to come together. Some of it's overgrown, some of it's not overgrown, some of the deeper places are going to be mushroom field, and, you know, different stuff like that. So that's what we're going to start working on today. I don't know how much we'll get done, we shall see. But anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it and see where we get to. Okay, so starting out, I'm just going through and I'm just changing all this over to grass, or dirt, which the grass spreads onto, to give us kind of a baseline to start with, though we will come back through and break up a lot of this. It's just I want a baseline to work from. And so since the growth is still kind of coming through here, we do have a bit of grass, though it is starting to break down, and we're starting to lose a little bit of that density on the grass that we've got in that first section, which will be kind of a thing where it kind of does break away a little bit. So though this section will still have quite a bit of grass, aside from the areas that are kind of more trampled and stuff like that, are kind of utilized a lot. So, and then we're moving down here to kind of break this up a bit as well and add that grass. I'll go ahead and say this video did take a while. This is actually the culmination of quite a few days, partially due to a massive amount of time thinking about stuff, because this was a very different style of build that we're going with today, and then also quite a bit of time I spent modding out Skyrim so that I have something to kind of play, to relax and just kind of have something, you know, different to kind of play in my spare time. Normally I play Minecraft 7 days a week, usually averaging about 10 to 15 hours a day on average, so a little break is kind of nice. And now I'm starting to actually run the baseline of our paths. You can see a little bridge that crosses the water down there, and then a little section that comes down here. This is going to be our staircase, basically, that accesses the lower section. There was a couple plans that I had considered, and I'll talk about one of them in particular later on in the episode, kind of during the outro bit. But I decided to go with just these staircases to kind of keep the open feel of this section of the cave, because I don't want it to be too restricting with a bunch of walls and stuff like that. So back up here, we're going to go ahead and run a border, or we're going to start working on a border that kind of comes through. It's going to be dark oak that kind of goes around this spruce, though we will come through and break this up a lot. This is just to give us a general baseline. So the baseline materials is spruce as our walkway, dark oak as our like our handrail sort of thing, and the same is true for the next the staircase that goes downward, and then we're going to bring some fences down kind of as base supports for this structure, though we will come through and do a lot with that here shortly. So now I'm going to bring the dark oak down along this section. You can actually see I built a ladder that connects to the bottom. You will still be able to access the bottom through the caves as well, but that little ladder there also gives us an easier access to just that bottom section. And I'm imagining as this all comes together, we'll have a lot of ladders and stuff, because I think that's going to be, with it being more goblin-ish architecture, kind of rickety, thrown together type stuff, I'm imagining it just being a mess, right? And that's where a lot of my issue and where a lot of time spent thinking came from. You can see right now I'm just kind of bringing the supports out a bit more, making them a bit more dense. And this is where a lot of my time spent thinking came from, because I don't normally build in this type of manner, because it's actually a little bit, it's harder to build, I think, in this style, at least for me personally, than it is to build like a building like we had been doing. you know, because this is wild and crazy kind of building, where their structures are very patchworked, you know, where stuff's just kind of built to kind of keep some semblance of structural integrity, but it's not structurally stable, right? It's not something that's built to stand the test of time and stuff like that. So I kind of imagine lots of quick fixes and just kind of you know, just rickety, and I want it to feel like when you walk over it that if it was, you know, real, it might be swaying and stuff. You know, it's not really something that's built to, you know, support a lot of weight and a lot of movement and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted the build to kind of feel like that. There's a lot of support down there, but as we come through and we make it, we start adding to it here in a little bit. I want it to feel like it's just really ramshackle and thrown together is the goal. So this actually, like I said, it took a while because it's a totally different build style than I usually use, and it is kind of wild and ramshackle. Right now it actually looks pretty nice, but we're going to make it look really garbage. Really garbage here soon. So, but now we're actually coming through. This is a little bit different of a build section. This part we're actually going to build kind of the walls of a structure that we'll expand more on a bit later, but just to kind of get a general idea. So if you recall, I said that there was going to be different types of structures and different types of build styles within this build. And so this is one of the examples. This is going to be kind of a ruined section that's been caved in on and kind of dilapidated, and just, it's really, really old. So this is the idea is that this predates even the goblins that moved into this cave. Maybe this is the older type structure. Maybe this was a fort or a castle or some kind of underground structure. Maybe it was above ground and it's sunk into the ground, and then inside it's going to be very dilapidated and caved in, and I don't really know how big it's going to be, what it's going to be yet, but I do know that I want just kind of a big ruined wall that kind of goes into that section. And there'll be some, later on as we continue building, there'll be some examples of this that come through in some of the lower sections, maybe bits of tower and different things like that. And we might actually come through and ruin this even more by breaking open sections and stuff like that. But right now, I'm building it kind of as a wall. Usually if I build really old ruins, you know, we talked about this during the Enigmatica series. I'll generally start with the build, or roughly the build. I mean, a lot of this is going to be caved in, underground, that kind of stuff. But I generally start with some semblance of the build, and then I break it from there. So that's kind of what we're doing right here, is just kind of building the wall. We're giving it a very aged look, so lots of different types of stone variation. There's cobblestone, there's stone bricks, there's cracked stone bricks, there's andesite, there's smooth stone. A lot of just different types and levels of wear on this wall. And so the idea is that this structure where this is actually going to lead to predates, you know, the goblins. And so right now I don't really have any like lore behind it. I don't even know if we need to establish lore behind it. Maybe it's just that mysterious section of the caves. Because of course the goblins predate the elves that have moved in and taken over. And this predates even them, maybe by a while. So I don't know exactly for sure. So, but anyways, this is just kind of the start of that bit of structure that's kind of coming together, because I do want, like I said, different types of build style. Down here in the caves we get to have a bit more fun. It's a little bit, you know, it's themed but not as strict of a theme, whereas above ground it's a little bit more, you know, it's forest fantasy, kind of different races and stuff that have moved in, so we can have a bit of fun with it, but it's still a little bit more strict than the fun we get to have down here. So down here we don't even have to have necessarily structures in all the places. It can just be vistas, you know. And so we can have a bit of fun down here. But and then right here I'm going through and I'm really wrecking this. I do go through and just make it a little bit more spruce than what I did in this first pass, because I felt like it was too varied. I kind of want spruce to be kind of the majority of the pathway, dark oak to still feel like the majority of the handrails. So right there, you can see there's a bit more spruce than there was. I cut for a second and just kind of clean that up a bit. But it's a really mixed match, because my thinking is, like, if I had, say, 3 different types of wood on me, and I was just going through and I was building the structure and I just didn't care about making it look nice. That's what took so long with this, is because I had to go through and I had to build this like I didn't care, right? Like what kind of material was put down. As long as it fit wood. I mean, I couldn't put stone into this because it just wouldn't make any sense. You know, goblins wouldn't be using stone for these pathways, and much of their structure building, they don't generally use stone. Well, depending on the lore, but these goblins are more like they get wood and they build stuff out of wood. But with Minecraft, you know, being blocky, I had to kind of work with that and just kind of make it look really, really ramshackle, right? So now we're coming through and we're adding a bit of wood variety, and you can see I've added some banners there. That's brown and red, and there's some brown and blue, just to kind of give it that tattered kind of old cloth look, kind of hanging down there. You know, maybe it was decoration that the goblins had, maybe it was just bits of cloth they had hanging. You know, I imagine them having these ragged, beat up, kind of torn banners hanging from their structures. So I did that, and then I've started adding some trap doors down through here just to kind of give it some other wood variety. It look like bits of wood that have just been kind of nailed up. And now we're moving down here to this bottom section. If you notice, there's some really strange cuts where things maybe change and stuff. That's because, like I said, this video took a massive amount of time. It's like 8 hours of footage, but then on top of that, it was like many hours of in-between footage, thinking and trying to figure things out and stuff. So this was actually the tougher of the builds. I really didn't feel like we got as much done as some of our previous builds, but it was actually the tougher of the bunch, because it's something that I couldn't really plan out, but I couldn't really wing either as well. It was it was a different style for me to kind of play around with. So right now we're just kind of adding that nailed up bits of wood kind of look to this. So basically these bits of wood that have just been kind of ramshackled onto the structures and kind of just hammered up and kind of giving it, like I said, that bit of structural security without it being too structurally sound, right? So this is their version of repairs. Is, oh, we're having bits of structural issues in this section. Well, let's nail more wood to it. That's kind of how I imagine goblins and their structures being. Is they don't actually fix things. They just add more to it, right? So that's kind of what I'm imagining. So once again, I'm trying to go through this build as if I just don't care about any kind of uniformity to it at all. It's just wild building. And it was interesting. I hope I didn't miss the mark too much on it, but that's kind of what I was going for. It's just wild, crazy. And the amount of wood that I actually used for this, because I used no telling how many trapdoors for this. There's trapdoors, as you'll see, there's trapdoors in the stairs, there's trapdoors on the walls, there's trapdoors all over the place. There's trapdoors on the fences, which actually cause them to connect, which looks pretty cool, I think. Now right here we're building another pathway that comes off of that main pathway that goes kind of above the other pathway. I know I said pathway a lot, but and the idea here is this is kind of a raised section, and it's also somewhat of a wall, because this will be kind of the end of where the goblin area is at. So maybe, we don't know exactly yet, but maybe they were defending themselves from something deeper in the caves. Maybe it's just a just-in-case sort of thing. Maybe it's just because they wanted a raised pathway there. You know, I don't know. I haven't decided for sure. But it actually does work out like a wall pretty well, because it's really, really dense, and it's got a lot of trapdoors, so it's kind of more ramshackle stuck together, trying to keep some sort of stability to it. So now we're just going through and adding a bit more trapdoors and just kind of finalizing this ramshackled walkway structure. So okay, this video took a while. Probably the longest, surprisingly enough, probably the longest of any video. Not as much, not as much recording time necessarily, but massive amount of just planning time. Plus, I did take a short couple-day break in between, but I wanted to, kind of get this video out for you guys, so you guys didn't think I'd forgotten about you. But I did take a couple-day break, basically just to spend a couple days focused and remod out Skyrim with some new mods and stuff. It's just something for me to play kind of as a free time sort of relaxation kind of game, because I didn't currently have anything going as far as my free time goes, and Skyrim's great, especially with mods. It's a great inspiration game, and so I modded that out. Got a little bit of time playing on there so far. But anyways, this has taken a while. It has taken a while, and I know it probably doesn't feel like it's that much, but it's actually a big chunk of, let's see, actual footage time. I had about 8 hours building this. I did speed it up quite a bit. It's, let's see, I sped it up and it's like, I don't know, 12 minutes or something of footage, but it's actually like 8 hours of raw footage. So just to give you an idea, not to mention a lot of pausing. I don't know if you noticed, it might be kind of hard to notice at that speed, but actually quite a bit of pausing in that footage, just thinking. Lots and lots of thinking, because you know, originally this was built with just dark oak and spruce mainly, and I decided that I wanted to really, and I know some people may not like it as much, but I wanted to really mix up woods, like in a wild way. No birch, acacia, jungle, it didn't feel right for this because I don't feel like that wood type. I mean, I know birch naturally grows above us, but it's such a light wood type. Oak's about as light as I can comfortably go, I think, with this. And I just feel like these might be the wood types that are actually native to our area. And so what would be gathered, I mean, you're talking about like goblin type architecture is the idea behind it, and they would not worry about making things uniform, making things look nice. And my idea was kind of like, you know, they're building this and they're just like grabbing whatever wood is readily available to them. And so it's a real mix match of spruce and dark oak and oak. With the primary colors, you know, every section has a primary color. So, I mean, down these railings and stuff, there's more spruce than there is oak and dark oak. And then down along through here, there's more dark oak on the railings and more spruce on the path than the other types of wood. But I think for the most part, it's kind of mixed matched all throughout here. And then I added some spruce trapdoors. I thought about adding dark oak trapdoors, but I feel like dark oak is just too wealthy of a wood type, you know? Is kind of what I feel like. I feel like, you know, it's not... oh, and a couple things that I forgot to add, and I was totally thinking about adding them and I forgot them, is cobwebs. I'll have to get those added. I was wanting cobwebs up along the bottom sections of these paths, and the bottom sections of, you know, down there and everything. But it slipped my mind. So, anyways, so this is just a really ramshackle kind of, and to me, even though it's blocky, you know, it's Minecraft, it's blocky, but to me, I feel like walking across this, it would shudder and shake. I'm not totally done. I've still got to pull up the torches and actually get proper lighting in all of this, but so far I do feel like this would like really kind of wobble when you walked across it. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be thinner. Maybe I'm missing the mark. I don't know. But that's kind of how I envision it anyways. And so there's all this like patchwork along the edges. Lots and lots of patchwork with the trapdoors. They just kind of look like where things have been nailed up to keep some semblance of structural integrity onto this. Then we've got these bits of, this is actually brown and red and brown and blue. This like tattered kind of cloth that's hanging here. I thought about doing designs on it. I don't know. I'm probably still going to play around with these a little bit. Maybe even do patterns. Probably not. I kind of want them just to be like bits of cloth that are hanging there. Kind of like left over. You know, I don't think the goblins would actually have a banner or anything. They would just have these like bits of tattered cloth that are hanging down. And then actually down in here is full storage, and all the lighting is done down in here. So, and then the pathways are mixes of the grass and the gravel and the stone and the cobblestone and the coarse dirt, just kind of sprinkled in there, and some stair blocks and stuff. I still wish I had grass stairs. That would be great. But actually quite a bit of storage down in here, down within this area. Nothing stored in here at the moment. But yeah, so like looking at it right here, I feel like it screams like rickety old wooden area down in here. And then we can cross this bridge here, which does have the trapdoors and stuff on the edges. Doesn't really go anywhere yet, but there is that little pathway. And then if we continue down, or continue over, this section here is actually kind of old ruins. Is what's going to be kind of off in this direction. And we're actually going to have some of these bits of the ruins coming out on this side lower down, I think. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But anyways, this is going to kind of lead into sort of a ruined, some kind of a big ruined structure that's I don't know, the stone is kind of taken over, and you know, it's not going to be clear-cut rooms. It's just going to be bits of the room that have over time they have kind of the cavern has somewhat collapsed into, and the rocks kind of settled into the structure and broken open the roof of the structures and stuff like that. So this is just kind of leading into what's going to be a big ruined building, basically, to some degree. It could be a castle, or you know, a fort or something. You know, I'm not sure if we'll ever know, but maybe we'll know. But this is like, this predates the goblins, which predates our elven community, so it's going to be very, very old, and lots of ruined sections. I might even actually end up breaking up some of this stone and having it maybe have fallen off and stuff like that. I don't know. We shall see. But there's not going to be any, probably not going to be any banners or anything like that. It's going to be fairly dilapidated in this section, I think. So this is where a lot of the time, not to mention me taking a break, but a lot of the time on this video is just planning, figuring out how we're going to approach this stuff and where certain things are going to be. And this is actually the tougher part, because we kind of have to build stuff that's broken down, ruined down, and actually fits in with the lore of these caves, which the lore of the caves, you know, is one of those unstated kind of lore things, because it's so old that we don't even know, you know, about it technically. So I don't know. It's been interesting. This video has taken a while, so I do apologize on the wait. And it's, I feel like looking at it, like, you know, we don't have a necessarily finished build, like here you go, like a big building, but it's very much still a work in progress. But yeah, and to me, there's a lot of times I looked at it and I thought about tearing it down, because I was like, man, that's such an eyesore. But at the same time, that's what it needs to be. It's a big eyesore. So I had to battle with myself a lot while building this too. Of course, we still have to come through and really kind of do the rest of the cave, and where the overgrowth's going to end and continue, and different things like that. It's actually a massive amount of work. This cavern section is a massive amount of work. Probably the biggest build and the most work of our entire series, or what will be, you know, this entire season, is these caves, surprisingly. Because the Lunar Citadel and stuff's clean and it can be built a precise way. This is more wild and crazy, and just, it's actually a lot of fun to build, but it does take a massive amount of time to build. Because it's not a clean, easy, kind of planned out sort of, or mentally planned out sort of structure. It's just kind of wild and whatnot. So I added another one of these little, like, curvy sort of staircases that come down. And by the way, these staircases are not convenient, because I can't step up that. Like, I'm walking into it right now, I can't step up it because it's trapdoor and then into like a full block. They're wild, ramshackle sort of staircases, bits of signs and trapdoors and different types of wood all kind of thrown together on this. This is the part that was actually kind of fun to build, but man, it took forever, because I don't know, just figuring out, I like planning and thinking about where things to go, and just without it being too much, because at some points I feel like the trapdoors might be too much, but then when I look at them at certain distances, I'm like, oh man, that looks really, really good. But if you're up close to them, they feel like maybe they're too much. I mean, from this distance, I actually quite love it. Up close, I less like it, so it's finding that balance. I don't know. I did clear out a couple of these, or a few of these, just to kind of loosen it up a little bit, but I don't know. I have no clue. But anyways, this little part here is kind of like a little balcony that overlooks the rest of our ramshackle sort of structure that's going on. This is going to be a bridge that goes over to another section of the caverns, maybe just a little room. I'm actually was thinking about having a sort of like a goblin type structure right here, maybe open this up, and so you can step into the goblin structure and have it actually hanging from the roof of the cave with like bits of wood, so the supports are actually just hanging down, holding it up. I don't know for sure. I thought that would be kind of cool, but maybe not. And then there's a ladder here that goes down. Of course, you'll also be able to access the lower caves coming through to this section. But this takes us down to here. And so this is kind of like, I don't know, like a big goblin wall sort of thing that runs through here. And it actually kind of feels like that because you kind of have this bit of, I mean, this bit is actually really, really dense. So like this outer wall section is very, very dense. And I mean, there's a lot of trapdoors and stuff. And then there's this section here that, you know, pretty much doesn't allow boats to travel. Of course, only a crazy person would ride boats through this because you've got around this waterfall, you would have like really high, I don't know what you would call it, currents and just the water splashing down and stuff. It wouldn't be very safe to ride a boat through here realistically. And then farther down the stream, of course, there's going to be another waterfall. So it's really not a boat type river. So I didn't worry so much about us being able to sail boats up and down this river. And not to mention this section here almost feels like some sort of a wall as it was coming together and with how dense it's built. And so I thought, well, maybe this is like some kind of a wall that they've erected to maybe protect from something that lurks deeper down in the caves or something that did lurk deeper down. But yeah. So, anyways, because I don't think the goblin structures are going to go any further down in the cave because it's going to kind of go into a different section, so to speak, like a much darker section and stuff. This is more of like the more immediate caves that you enter, and then as you go deeper in, it gets darker and more wild, let's say. It's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. I mean, this is a massive, massive project. So, but yeah. So, anyways, we've kind of got this big ramshackle structure, and we're actually going to have. Of course, this is just getting the pathways down. We don't have actually any buildings at present, but I'm also wanting kind of like a little structure that kind of flanks the sides of these waterfalls, and I don't know, lots of little like goblin-y type structures, and that's going to be interesting to build because goblin structures tend to be kind of just jam-packed, crammed in, ramshackle type things, and so we kind of have to do that with this. I thought about actually having this walkway that comes through here, leads over to here, and a lot of our goblin houses be down the side of this mountain, and maybe that's what that pathway there connects up to, is goblin housing that kind of just hangs off over this cliff. And so the little goblin town or village, or depending on how you want to look at it, would be kind of centered around this little area here, where they've kind of taken up residence, because I never think of goblin cities as actually being all that large, because they tend to live in very cramped small houses, at least in most lore. So that's kind of what I'm imagining, is kind of just centered around in this, and maybe off some into the ruins as well, where they've kind of taken up residence inside those old ruins as well. But yeah, so anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's steadily coming together, but it's one of those where the building process is taking a lot longer, because this kind of stuff is a little bit harder to kind of build just at random. Of course, you also can't really plan it because it's just kind of wild and crazy sort of building, and it's actually probably one of the tougher building styles. It's a lot tougher than building the buildings, strangely enough. It really, really is. To build wild and crazy, it's actually a lot tougher than building clean and pristine, I suppose. So it's actually been very, very tough. But I hope you guys like it, or the way it's coming together. I hope you guys don't mind the mixed match of wood. I know some people may not like it as much, but I kind of imagine, like, if I was building this, let's say, and I had, this, and maybe another type of slab, and I'm just going through, just kind of throwing stuff together, that's probably what would come of it. It's just lots of different types of wood just kind of thrown together. And so that's kind of what I tried to mimic. because I would load out my inventory, actually. That's why the shovel wasn't here, and actually at one point the pickaxe wasn't here. And I would have like 3 different types of slabs, 3 different types of stairs, and I was just kind of, or fences, and I was just kind of going through, just throwing random things in random places, and this is what's come of it. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay updated with when new videos come out. I hope to see you guys next time. So until then, as always, do take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys then.